Hi everyone, I'm Brad, this is Joel, we're from Triaster, and today we're going to show you how to run a process mapping workshop. Joel's got all the skills, so I'll hand it over to him so he can explain from start to finish. I'll hand it over to Joel now.
Thanks, Brad. So first of all, you're going to need some equipment to run a process mapping workshop. We recommend having a roll of brown paper. You can see we've got it stuck on the wall here. You also want some tape to stick your brown paper on the wall. And then we recommend having 3 different coloured sets of post-it notes, as well as a Sharpie pen. The reason we have the 3 different coloured post-it notes, if you're process mapping in the noun-verb methodology, one's for activities, one's for deliverables, and then one's for decisions. So the first thing we need to do is decide on the process to map. So I think Brad and I are going to take you through how to make a hot beverage.
There we are. Yeah, it's going to be good.
So the first thing I'd do is I'd write the title of the process on the paper, just so it keeps you within scope. So if we're mapping in the noun-verb methodology, we need to make sure that the title starts with a verb. So this is going to be called Make a Hot Beverage. So once you've got your title sorted out, you need to further zoom in on the scope of your process, and to do that you need to identify the start and the end deliverable. So if we're making a hot beverage, what I'm going to do whilst I'm doing this is ask Brad the questions that I'd ask in a process mapping workshop to draw the information out.
Okay.
So if we're making a hot beverage, we're going to use the pink ones for deliverables, by the way, and the green ones for activities, and then we can use the orange ones for the decisions. So in our quest to make a hot beverage, Brad, what do we start with? What do we have that tells us we need to create a hot beverage?
You have a need.
Exactly, a need or a requirement. So the way I do this, when we're working with deliverables, we try and imagine the words "show me the" before them. And this one here, I refer to this as a thirsty person. Somebody in the world is thirsty, needs a beverage making.
Okay, cool.
Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So thirsty person, that goes on our board.
Thirsty person.
So if you think about the noun-verb methodology, this is a deliverable. So this is a noun, and if you imagine the words "show me that," you could literally grab a thirsty person, bring them in, and show them. That's the idea behind it. Okay.
Yeah.
So what's our end point? We're making a hot beverage. Our start point is a thirsty person. What's our end point going to be?
You have the hot beverage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have a hot beverage. So on the post-it note goes hot beverage. So we're going to keep this process very high level. I don't want to go into the intricacies of how to make specific hot beverages. It's just going to be, okay, we need to make a hot beverage, we do this, then we've got one. At each of the different activity levels, you could drill down into more detail and say, if it's a tea, you do this, if it's a coffee, you do you could attach procedures, work instructions, whatever you need to. But for this session, we're going to keep relatively high level and say we do, say, 3 or 4 activities to get us to this point. We've got a thirsty person in our room. What do we do? So we know we need to make them a hot beverage. What's the first activity that we do? What's the first thing we'd say to them? I'm just going to put type of beverage with a question mark.
Okay. Yeah.
And let's just say there are the normal 3 outputs to this. So you get tea, coffee, hot chocolate. We don't want to go down the route of sort of mache, latte, all that sort
Sure.
of stuff.
Okay. No specifics.
No specifics, not at the minute. No, keeping it quite high level. We could do it. So what I do is here is I get out the high level process, then I pick places to break it down into more detail.
Okay.
So let's say we've got tea.
I really want to get specific.
Coffee, and then hot chocolate. So let's just say we've got a thirsty person. They want one of these beverages. What's the next activity we do?
All right. So you go and get it.
You get it, but what's it? What are we getting?
The powder or the
Exactly. So at this point here, I think this step here is going to be the decision's been made. We want a tea, coffee, or hot chocolate. The first activity is going to be you need to go and get some stuff to make the drink.
Yeah.
So in the noun-verb methodology, how would you word that? We want a verb to say go and get some stuff. What I'd say here is we need to gather some equipment probably. So we know we want to make one of these, so we need to gather the correct equipment to make that specific beverage. So on my activity, the green, I'm just going to put gather equipment. In the noun verb, we now need a deliverable. So as a result of doing that activity, what do we now have? What's our deliverable from that?
You have the equipment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's just pause at that moment, because sometimes it's like you're stating the obvious with the noun verb methodology. We've said we're going to gather equipment, and we've got some equipment. So people tend to think that's duplicating the words on your process map, but that's the point of it, because if you've got a very obvious deliverable from your activity, that means that activity is worth doing. You know what the expected output's going to be. Where the noun verb methodology comes into its own is when you can't specify what the output is. So the more obvious the output is, the better really, because it means, okay, we've done this activity, there is a definite specific output to it, which is valuable to the process.
Okay.
So you're right. So it's equipment there. So when you take it right down to basics, noun verb is process improvement in its sort of in its rawest form. You're just trying to find out what people are producing by carrying out the activities they say they're doing. Okay, so Brad, so we know we're going to make a hot beverage. It's going to be one of these things here. We said we're going to gather some equipment. We've got our equipment. What next?
Okay, so you're going to make the beverage?
Well, I'd say we've got some equipment, but we don't have any tasty ingredients just
okay.
yet.
So you get the ingredients. Yeah.
Exactly. So
okay.
in the noun verb, so we said gather equipment. What would you say the next activity is called?
So you've got gather equipment, so gather ingredients.
Yep,
yeah.
so you could stay consistent with like I said, after doing it for so long, you will end up with a complete list of verbs you can just throw out. But we now need a deliverable, which is going to be our noun. What's that going to be, do you think?
It'll be ingredients.
Exactly. So again, because we're staying relatively high level here, it doesn't really matter what those specific ingredients are at this level. If we were to drill down onto a lower level of detail, we could say, okay, so if we're making tea, we need to get tea bags, we need hot water, or tea leaves if you're posh. We may need milk, depending on whether you have milk. We need some bone china mugs, of course. If it's coffee, we need the coffee beans. If it's hot chocolate, we need all the chocolate. So at this level, it's just we want some ingredients. We're not really going into the detail of what those ingredients are right now. So again, this is a case of where the deliverable seems quite obvious. Again, it's good because we know exactly what we're getting as a result of doing this activity. We've got a thirsty person. We've decided what beverage they're having. We've got some equipment. We've got some ingredients. What's next?
Make the coffee?
Exactly. So what I tend
Finally,
to do...
we need to make the coffee.
What I tend to do is, because the process is called make a hot beverage, I wouldn't have an activity on the map that's the same words, if you see what I mean. So what I'd say here is we need to do something with this and this to get this. So when you're I guess mixing things together what would you call it as a verb?
Mixing together.
yeah. So I'd say combine. I'd say you combine the equipment and the ingredients, which gives you a hot beverage.
Okay.
I know there's more to it than that, but like we said, we're going to keep a relatively high level, and there's much more to it than just getting loads of equipment and loads of ingredients and smashing them together. There's some skill involved, but at this high level process, it doesn't really matter. It's combine these ingredients with the equipment, and we'll end up with a hot beverage. Beneath this activity, we could have a drill down map or a procedure or a work instruction to say, you need to boil the kettle, you then need to put the coffee into the mug, you need to put the water in, but here all we're worried about is what is the most high level step to take us from here to here.
Okay, yeah.
So combine ingredients with equipment, which gives us our hot beverage. Okay, so we've kept within the scope there. We started with a thirsty person, we've ended up with a hot beverage. The next process in this chain could be, for example, consume hot beverage.
Yeah.
So we tend to map end-to-end processes and connect them together with off-page connectors. So in this end-to-end process, you'd have make hot beverage, consume hot beverage. You could also have clear up the mess after creating hot beverage, connecting all those together by using the end outputs on the process maps. Okay. So does that make sense, Brad? So we've got started with a thirsty person. We've got our hot beverage. We've done a decision here. Then we've done 1, 2, 3 activities, which has given us that hot beverage.